Kia ora, good evening. Welcome to one more session of our Coding Night user group. And tonight we have a special guest, Jorge Arteiro. How are you?
Hey Marcel, thanks for inviting me. Yeah, I'm very happy to be here. Hello
Yeah,
everyone, and anyone that will be watching this. Yeah, it's a pleasure to be with you, the New Zealand community, and launching the AzureTar community here as well.
yeah, it's definitely like a pleasure. I know like how busy you are and how busy you're going to be like this week. It's going to be busy for you. And thank you like for your time. Just to thank you for that. And tonight we're gonna talk like about gRPC in .NET 6. So we're gonna have an introduction of AzureTar, and then we're gonna go straight to the presentation. So we have like really good news. I'm really excited for AzureTar or AzureTar, and yeah, I think like for from here we can just start, George. So let me just share my screen here, and then we can go through the my my viewing here. Just a minute. Share screen.
Yeah, no problem. Let's see if people.
Let me see. Okay, go my screen. This one. All right, George.
Let's go. Yeah, let's talk about just quickly. That's my profile. Have a QR code there. I'm a cloud developer advocate for Microsoft on the cloud native and container space. And that's why you said that I was busy this week. We have NDC Melbourne happening from Wednesday to Friday. I'll be speaking about containers for .NET developers. That's very
That's really cool.
similar to the group here that you guys talk about .NET, and I'll be talking for .NET developers there as well. And that's what I do. I was Microsoft MVP, Azure MVP. I haven't put there, but I was Microsoft MVP for a few years. Then I joined Microsoft back 2019 as a consultant, and for the last 12 months, I'm cloud developer advocate now.
Mm-hmm.
And I have been doing all these open source, CNCF, cloud native containers and Kubernetes, like since 2014, 15, beginning of Docker containers. I've done in many conferences like Container Camp, API Days, and I used to be Azure MVP for API management.
All right.
And yeah, that's what I like. And I also launched a new channel, a personal channel called C8 Space. If you want to subscribe, it's called Container Spaces. It's for all my cloud native content.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm also, if you want to follow me as a mentor, is a thing, something I do apart from my job. There are the links there. There's my YouTube channel and my Instagram. But let's
Oh,
go talk about AzureTar. That's what we're going to launch tonight here.
awesome.
And yeah, if you are live or watching this, please subscribe for the youtube.com AzureTar or AzureTar. AzureTar, I break it like in two names to be like a tarball, like a zip file for Azure. If you compact Azure, that's where you're going to find content for Azure.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we have now more than 100 videos published. And one thing we bring is more than one language. There are more videos in English for sure, but we also have in Portuguese. That's nice
Yeah.
for us here because we both speak Portuguese. But if you don't, yeah, most of the content, they are in English. And if you want to bring another language, I think we are more than welcome to to bring a third or fourth language or whatever.
Yeah.
And as you can see, the AzureTar.com, that's the blog, the website, where you can find like a welcome page with most of the links for LinkedIn, for Telegram, for all the communities that we have in different language, like a Discord server.
Hmm.
And the Twitter is very popular as well. The Twitter have more than I think 1,500 followers, and the Twitter was the first thing I created back in 2015. The AzureTar is not like something new; it's something I created back in 2015.
Yeah,
And the YouTube channel is like 2 years old, and now we have almost 1,400 followers, and it's growing fast now.
yeah. I got a question. Like,
Yeah,
I've seen like the videos. I think like yeah, it's really great content. I would say. I'd like to know like the history about like this the boy with the headphone. Yeah.
yeah. The history was my 11 years old at the time. She asked her to draw that. I just want like like a to be a boy, or not like gender,
Uh-huh.
not really defined what gender is, but with headphones and sitting on the cloud.
Yeah.
And the original is like a boy sitting on the cloud with the laptop, and that's just the head of the boy. But if you look on the Twitter, you can see the whole.
Yeah.
And she did by hand, and I really enjoy, and I'm using that since then, and
Oh
it's
yeah.
funny because
Really cool. Yeah, I like inviting like the user group to have a look like this content and actually also contribute, right? And create like content. And if you're passionate about technology, that's such a great opportunity that George is just like bringing to us. Right. So
yeah, not just to
definitely,
be a consumer, like to
yeah,
be active on the community. And
yeah,
the
no,
next slide I put there exactly for you to join us.
yeah,
Um, there is a form that you can go on that QR code there,
hmm,
and you can don't be afraid. Okay, just your name, your email, and just tell us. You can select more than one option there, and yeah, let's keep in touch and see how I can help, how we can help you as well, and how we can help the community. How if you want to write blogs or record a video, we have
yeah,
mentors like we call community mentors, where we try to give you a guidance how to create this content, how to write your blog, which subject we should pick to write something.
hmm,
If you want to write, like the session tonight will be gRPC for .NET. What more? What you want to
correct,
talk about .NET or about Azure, about cloud native? Let's discuss this subject. Let's try to break these in like a small talk. And doesn't matter if you have done that many times or if you have never presented or never wrote a blog, we can help you. And if you are MVP or someone with a professional, with experience, or one thing that you can teach someone, yeah, join us and help to help others, and
yeah.
let's help each other.
I feel like when I heard about like this initiative, I think like it matched really well like with this user group because the idea was really I think it's on the next slide, but was really to empower like junior devs up to like I would say depending on their career journey up to like becoming architects to be engaged really with the community and by learning and sharing. I think like once like you share, I think you consolidate your knowledge, and I think like that's a very positive thing. That's um, I think like for me, I always work that way, and I think like for anyone keen like to help like and be part of any user group, I think that's a definitely a very positive engagement that you can be in. Like so, well, that's why I invited like George to be part of this session tonight.
Yeah, and you guys to be part of the community, and I would like to say we're going to keep working together, and come back and maybe invite the speakers from the community as well.
Correct.
if you want to call that you're going to sponsor, but we don't have. It's just a community. We don't have any money or any
Correct.
sponsor, but
Yeah.
it's like people helping each other.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's very nice to have that connection with other countries, and we are close here, Australia, New Zealand. We have groups
Yeah.
in Brazil. We have people starting in other countries as well, the community, and let's bring those meetups and make sure that we connect all of those meetups. The people that are participating and talking on those communities, on those meetups, to also share knowledge in a single way,
Yeah.
where you are going to be stronger if you are together than just splitting these in many smaller communities. And AzureTar I see as opportunity to have something more centralized where we could share it. I could be sharing your presentation now there as well if you want to publish there.
Yeah.
And if you have done a blog or a talk, in another place where you haven't got many views, let us know. Maybe we can republish at the AzureTar.
Hmm.
That's another
Yeah.
way as well for us to promote, your work
Yeah.
and see how we can do like a second one and a third one.
Yeah.
And you don't have to publish it only on AzureTar. You can publish in your blog as well, in your channel. But is a way to promote your work and promote the community work in a centralized way.
Yeah. We are a global community of technical specialists and people like that love technology. So yeah, very
Yes,
nice.
thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. Very keen like to for this user group to be part of it. And we start this like in New Zealand. So yeah,
Thanks,
thanks,
Marcel.
George, for sharing that. It's really great. Yeah, I
Thank you.
think
Thank
with
you for having me. And I want to see your presentation. I want to see what you're going to
yeah,
show us tonight.
cool. Yeah, I'm very excited to go like with it. So for people like on the user group, so you already know me, right? So Marcel Medina, software developer and Azure specialist. I work like currently working as a lead developer at my food bag. And my technical blog is tech.playgokids.com. The I think like the match with AzureTar was on this definition of what the user group is. That we are a community like of developers that love coding and follow best practices, right, on software development languages, technologies. And the intent matches with AzureTar, where we're a group like the intent is to enable developers with practical knowledge and to excel and launch their careers, right? So I think that's a really good match for like the initiative on AzureTar. So that's why I feel like that's really important to have that enabling other developers to have this
Yeah,
exposure, right?
that's a good way to promote yourself in a good way. Just say let the world know what you're doing. And now, if like a
Correct.
global community like Ajata, you can, if you publish something there, or even talk here, and we publish, we're going to show your work, for more people, for more companies, and it's a good way to start your career and even promoting inside your own company as well.
Yeah,
Sometimes you're going to be surprised. People from your company is going to be watching your talk, your video, and that's helped with me at Microsoft. People watch my talk and they contact me inside Microsoft because they watch my talk like
yeah,
a community talk.
yeah. Really cool. Yeah. And with that, I think we can start with the presentation. All right. So it's going to be like more, it's, in general, like it's a presentation, but if you have people like to be part of it, asking questions, becomes more like a conversation, and where we are more actively interacting. But basically, what we're going to approach in here is that like three bullet points, like the concept, in more details around the protocols that enable gRPC, right? in a demo. It's gonna be heavy on demo, so I hope like we gonna have the time. But like to start, right? What's gRPC? That's a new technology. I think it's becoming more popular now, but it's been in the market for a while. But as you can see, like gRPC as its own definition, I got like from grpc.io. So that's a modern open source high performance remote procedure call framework that can run in any environment. Right? I am just highlighting here some well key words like open source. So it's open source because well historically, if you don't know, gRPC came from Google. So Google used to have like this. I think that the technology used to be called like Stubby. It was an internal initiative where they were running on their internal microservices. In only 2017, that was onboarded by CNCF, right, the Cloud Native Computing Foundation, and that became an open source project, right? And currently, it's at the incubating project maturity level. So there are different maturity levels, but this project has been used in production successfully, right? So that's a very positive thing that you can adopt technology. There are multiple companies backing that up, like including Microsoft, right? Google is also like one of those. And it's an open source project and can run in any environment. So it's a cross-platform. Um, I would say solution that allows you to run like on Mac, on Linux, on Windows, right? And it has like the high performance. So I think like what enables the gRPC to be like really fast is because it relies on HTTP2 and the protobuf, which is a serialization, let's say, uh, I would say protocol, but like it's a way of compacting the messages, right? And that's also owned by Google. Started with that initiative. And if you go like a little bit further on, I'm gonna explore more like the HTTP2 and protobuf because that's where like we get to understand more about gRPC. But when you look like at the HTTP2, we have like this concept of the binary framing, right? That's a layer that dictates like how the messages are encapsulated and transferred between clients and server. So if I come in here, like, so that's the binary framing. And you can see there are like some similarities with the HTTP 1.1, where you have like this sort of header and you have the body. But when you look at that, like the binary frame, it is a binary, but it still has headers in the data, but they are called like frames, right? So I mean, I think like jump on that, but you can see we have the header and the data all together. And what enables to be fast is because different from HTTP 1.1 that runs on HTTP, this one runs on TCP, right? So that allows like it's much faster. And by the way, HTTP2 is also Google is is the father of HTTP2. Um, yeah, so that's I think like historically we used to call like a speedy, and Google converted relabeled that onto HTTP2. It's interesting how like things come up and become open source, right? And that's very positive for the community. And looking here, HTTP2. So if you go like a little bit further, right, gRPC relies heavily on that. So you can see like the three concepts in here where we have these concepts of the string. That's basically well, you can see here like by the arrows that we have like two ways. So it's a bidirectional flow of bytes. Right? So that are just being transferred like from client to server, in a connection. And we also can look like the messages. So one stream can have multiple messages. That's how like it works on with HTTP2. And the smallest units of information, it's called frame. So that's as like a show like in the previous slide, we have like the header and the body really the payload that's transferred between clients and server. I also have the reference in here. I go like from Google web.dev. And then we have the protobuf, right, which is this. Well, Google doesn't define that as like is this. It just says are, right? So protobuffers are a combination of like definition language, so where it leverages these proto files, the code that the proto compiler generates, right, with to interface with the data. So because it generates a compiled, I would say binary for that. That's the one that's transmitted or like during the communication. Language specific runtime libraries that allows you to have like different languages to work with that uh, let's say with this serialization and the serialization format for the data that's written either to a file or sent across the network connection. In specific for the gRPC, we transmit on the network, but the protobuf itself can be used to serialize data. Like if you're going to write like on a specific file, we're not going to explore that, but protobuf itself allows you to do that, right? So that you have this compact data storage. That's I didn't know, to be honest. I was just using like gRPC for communication, but you can use to compact data. It's very interesting. Well, you have like this fast parsing. And you can definitely see that on Visual Studio. That Visual Studio like it's can just like translate the proto implementation onto uh, the C sharp, right? The conversion to the .NET. It's available like in availability in different programming languages, right? So protobuf is a generic, is a definition language that you can implement, can be implemented by different languages. Can be like Java, can be C sharp, can be Python, in other languages. I'm only mentioning three, but there are more than that. And you have like this auto generation of classes because at the moment you compile, it spits out the definition for the language that you are adopting. Right? So that we're gonna see like on the demo how it works. But that's protobuf. So that's one of the core. It's how gRPC works. Let's have a look like an example of a proto file. That's where like the definition language comes in. Uh, well, I had like the pointer here. Don't know what's happening, but if you follow like here my cursor, but you can see that we have the definition of like proto 3. That's the syntax that the current that it's leveraged. And we have like this option, which it's language specific. In C sharp, we have like the namespace, but in Java, you can have like packages, right? There's like other options for Python as well, because we're talking about like .NET. This is what we're doing here. The package means like within the context of proto files. Well, in C sharp, we have namespaces, but on proto files, this behaves more like that, like a package, where, for example, here I have a message address. I can have only a single address within this package. But if I was to have this on another package, I could do it, right? So the package just centralize the messages in the services that you have. And here I have like an example, more real world scenario where you're going to end up with different messages, which are just wrappers, contracts, of how like your objects are defined. We can see here just address, have a number, street, name, suburb, city, and country. What's interesting is that you need to specify that for each attribute, you need to have this incremental, uh, you need to specify the, more like a tag, but it needs to be incrementally specified because it means that it's a unique attribute for that. So you need to follow this convention on proto files. So this is a message. It's not the service. The service is on this other file. But what you can see here, different from here, we have like a way of importing proto files, right? And with that, you can see the address is here, right? On my user response, I have like two messages: user request, user response. And depending on the language you are, you specify like uh, Microsoft like has a mapping of the sort of variables in the definitions that you can use. I'm using here like an integer and string, but you can see here like for the address, I'm referencing the other message that comes in here. All right, so address dot address. And here's the service that I use like with RPC. Specify RPC, the method name, what's your the signature, right? What's your parameter and the returning object. Right? That's how the proto files work. What I'm gonna do now is just jump like to codes. We're gonna create a Visual Studio solution client server, and I'm gonna see this one running, right? So I have in here, I'm gonna start like a new project, right? I'm sharing like my screen. I'm gonna, if you, I have like the project in here, like gRPC service, but you can come to Visual Studio 2022 and you can search for that. You're gonna see this ASP.NET Core gRPC service. I'm gonna start that one. I'm gonna call gRPC service sample. I've just put like on a temporary folder just for this example. One of the things to note in here is that, well, in here I'm just going to put like as is. I'm not going to change the structure of the solutions or the project. But what I'm going to do in here is just like make sure you have like .NET 6. I'm not going to enable Docker. In this case, I'm just demoing from Visual Studio. And if you want like to split like the on .NET 6 has like this implementation of the minimal APIs, I'm gonna take advantage of that. If I was to click in here, I would split that into different files. I want just a simple implementation. So let's just start the project. And once that's created, you're gonna see that we're gonna have the servers. Let me just, well, I think for now it's okay, but I just want to show, let me go here, right? So we have like the service that we defined. You're gonna see we have like two folders, the protos and the services in one single file because we're leveraging minimal APIs. So if we go on the program CS, let's see, let me close that. You're gonna see like that this is basically, that's the ASP.NET Core, but we have like implementation, an extension of the service collection for the gRPC, and we are mapping a gRPC service, which is basically in here. Let me open like both. So in here, right? So we have like this greeter service and a greet proto. If we are to open that, that's what comes out of the box. We have a message with just like a single attribute in a request reply. And we have RPC method that receives the request and returns the reply. And the service that's mapped for this service, for this proto, right? If you look in here, this is the definition that Visual Studio creates by compiling proto onto the language specific, right? So that's something we don't need to worry about, but it's in there, it's auto-generated by Visual Studio. What I want to do is to create like a more sort of a real world scenario, leveraging the address in the user that we have. So let's just start in here, create like proto files, new item. I'm gonna come in here and search for proto. So we have the protocol buffer in here. I'm gonna call this one address, okay? And I'm gonna just bring like the contents that I had it, because that's from my previous slides, and just bring that. So it came up like the syntax, the namespace. I just included like the package and the address, right? So let's save this one. Let's create another one for the user, okay? So let's come in here and create the user. Let's add that. And for the user, we are referencing the address. So let me copy that and put it here. All right, so this is the address. It's interesting, like there are two definitions. Both are gonna work, but I prefer removing those dots. It also works, but it feels like maybe too much. But yeah, I prefer like that, right? So with this reference that comes from the import. Uh, to be honest, this is not enough. One of the things you notice, you're gonna notice now, is that if I click on grid and if I go on F4, right, you need to be aware of this. You need to specify that this is a protobuf compiler, like it needs to be built with for gRPC. If you don't do that, this is simply a regular file. So it's not going to compile for you. So you need to like remember that. Specify protobuffer. In my case in here, well, I'm not going to specify as a client. I'm going to leave only as a server, because that's where we are. We're creating like the server component. Let's do the same for the user. I'm going to do that and create the server. All right. From here, like as soon as if I compile that, actually, like I don't need even to compile. Visual Studio automatically is going to create like the service. So if I come in here and create like a new service, let me create a class. I'm gonna call this one user service. All right. And if I come in, I need to have, if you look in here, we have this inheritance, right? I'm gonna do the same in here. But remember, for the original grid, it was on this namespace. For the new one, it's under the dot protos. So let's go like to protos dot user service dot user service base dot uh, no, that's the one. That was what was created by Visual Studio. I didn't compile. Visual Studio did like all the job for me, because I specified that this is a proto buff, right? If you forget that, you don't get it, and then like you would just question like, oh, what's going on? But yeah, don't forget this step. I have like a method in here, and what it's doing, like I'm just importing the references like to the address, to the user. But if you know, like there's a movie I like a lot. So if you look in here, like the user first name, last name, you're going to identify. I'm not gonna mention. So, but this is our request, right? So we're requesting a user request. You're gonna have a user response for that. With that, if I am one more thing, right? So we create this user service, but the user service itself is not exposed. We need to expose that. So we need to come in here and user service. Right? If I don't have that available, so when I call this from the client, this is not gonna work. So this is an important thing. Let's create now. Um, One of the things I had in here my console. What I'm gonna do, I just want to copy this, copy full path. I'm gonna put like this one, the server. Let me jump in there. So ls for this one, this is the project, right? I'm gonna leave it hanging here, and I'm gonna come up later because we're gonna create the client now. Let's go and create a new project. I'm gonna create a console app, right? Because I just want to validate the communication client server. Let's go with that. For this one, let's call it gRPC client sample. Right? For server was server sample. For clients, I'm gonna call it client sample. I think it's all right. Leverage .NET 6. We have like the boilerplate, hello world. What we need to do, right? We need to create a channel. That's how, first, we need to create this communication between client server. How we do it? We create a channel first. And then what we need to do, we need to create the client. Right? That's the client that's going to leverage the channel, and that's going to enable us to communicate with the server. And then we make the request. That's basically what needs to be done, right? But how we're going to do it? We have nothing here. Well, we can do like a service reference. We can come here, right, gRPC, and you're going to see that I'm going to reference the proto buffers from these projects. I'm going to grab all of them, right? And I'm specifying that this one is going to be a client because that's my clients I'm implementing. So Visual Studio is going to import the NuGet packages and include like the definitions that I have. Let me see, like, did it create for the user? Proto, it did. So in here we have like, it's kind of a copy what Visual Studio does for us. But if I am to compile this right now, you're gonna see a problem. Right? It's an interesting one. Well, it's saying that, okay, the address proto for my client was not found. Like, how come? It's in here, right? Yeah, there's a kind of a bug because what happens is that, well, you can see like the reference in here, like, okay, everything is a client, but the project itself doesn't find the proto buffers. What you need to do is that we need to use this magical reference where specify this is the root, the proto root. I'm gonna do that the same because this is only because I have a reference between user and address. But the grid itself, because it's isolated, it just works. And now if I am to compile this, I uh, I don't have the main.
You
All
forgot one
right,
there.
yeah, it's because I removed. But yeah, like as soon as I put like this one, so it should work. But like we don't have the year anymore, right? Let me just copy like in here, create the channel so you guys can see it. So let me create the channel for that. You're gonna see, okay, like I'm specifying gRPC channel for address. Well, this was a port number I had it. I need to update that. But you can see that the reference. You're just importing that. All right, let me grab this one. And in order to know like the port number, what I can do, I can just go like .NET run, and then I'm gonna get the port number that's going to be assigned, 7278. Let me copy that. I'm gonna come in here and replace it, right? So that's what I have. And then we're gonna create the client. Let's put, we're gonna have two clients. Let's start like the first one for the greeter, right? The one that we have in there. That's just like a base request. And let's make the request for this one. And then we need to print it, right? So let's print this. But what you can see is that I have the channel. The channel is passed to this client for the greeter that was in there. Once I have the client, then I can request, make the calls to the methods passing the request. I should get a response from that, right? So if I am like to save this, and now I'm gonna put like this one as a always like to stop this, but let me just grab this, copy the full path, and let me remove this. Yeah, and let's do it. .NET Run. So this is going to build and show like the message, right? So it went like to the gRPC server. It was like there was a what's going to reply, right? Is that, well, hello, the request that we're sending, and we got that. But interesting, like you didn't see anything happening on the server. There was a request. I'm gonna show like how we can change that. We couldn't like introduce logging, but there's like another implementation like using like interceptors that allow you to grab like more details about the request. And let's see that very soon. Let's just continue with the user service. And what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna create another client because we created for the greeter. Let's create now for the user service, right? And after we get the clients, let's create the response, the request for that. So I'm just passing, okay, give me like the user details for this request with this user ID. What I want to do, because we're gonna get, you can see here that these are hello reply. Oh, sorry, let me put like this one, Control D, response to, but it's not a message. This is an object, right? What I want to do, just to print everything, there's a handy serializer here, system.text.json, which is going to output the object for me. So if I make like the request in here, right? So you can see it, right? So we have the first request and the object being returned from the server. We still didn't see anything here. What I'd like to show is that like with gRPC, we have ways of intercepting the message, right? And there's like a really good GitHub repository I'm gonna share with you guys, but there are like tons of examples. I'm gonna grab only one because of the time constraints. But this one, it's if you want to intercept messages, it can be like on the client side or on the server side. You can intercept the message if you have any sort of logic that you need to modify the object. You can do it. In general, like I use like for logging, because then like you're just intercepting at the moment of the request and you're printing any sort of information, right? What I'm going to create in here, I'm going to create on the server. Let me see if I just stopped this. I'm going to stop that. Let me create a folder in here. It's going to call interceptors. I can have more than one, so that's why I'm calling interceptors. I'm going to create one for the server. It's going to be called um, server logger interceptor, right? Well, that's it. What I need to do, I need to inherit from interceptor, which is, oh, not this one, interceptor. And you can see it's inherited from coming from gRPC core interceptors. That's like the inheritance I need to have. I have like more, a little bit of magic in here. I'm gonna copy and paste. But what I'm doing, so I'm just importing the methods. Well, I have like a constructor that receives an iLogger. So that's part of like the .NET. Well, that's how like things are hooked up on the logging. And I just taking, okay, give me iLogger when like this well, this interceptor is initialized, but we have an override. It's called like unary. The unary is the simplest way of communicating client server, like on a request. And one of the things you can see here is that the continuation. is the execution itself. What I'm doing, I'm saying before it happens, I'm gonna log like some extra information about what's being called. I'm gonna save this. Let's start this server again. Well, I'm gonna clear this one. Let me I put like on top. I'm gonna clear this one as well. Right, so we have that in there. There's one more thing I'm forgetting. It's not gonna work. There we need to, so like with the service collection, there's like this injection, right? That's happens on .NET. That's done like on the initialization, which is basically here. So you can see the service collection, but this is specific for the gRP that Microsoft has implemented. I need to hook my interceptor in here. If I don't do it, nothing's gonna happen really. So in here you can see the import, right? gRPC sample interceptors server logger, which is this one. I'm just saying, okay, include this interceptor. Now we are ready. So if we go in here and we start, okay, we have that in there. Let me run that. Just notice what happened, right? So we have like ways of introducing more logging. So you can intercept calls. You can see in details like what's being transmitted. In here, like I see that, okay, I'm calling, or a client is calling, say hello, and they get user details, right? Specified by Unary. There's like a sample. I think like with that, on this example, that's what I want to show. I also like want to show this other sample. I'm going to create another window here that I downloaded from the Microsoft, from the GitHub. Let me just copy the link because that's like a really great reference to have a look and explore. Let me see if I have it here handy. This one. I'm gonna put like on the chat. Right. Let me just show this one. I'm gonna go come in here on the, I think it's under my temp, git, in gRPC. This one is under examples. So I grabbed the repository before this meeting, but you can see here we have, well, different implementations with patterns. I'm gonna mention all of them, right? But I'm only using this. So there's really great stuff in here, like for the different ways of communication, right? Like with streaming, and even like for well, if you work like have like backend servers, like you have the worker implementation, well, there are lots. I definitely recommend you to come to this repository and exploring that. I'm gonna go to the interceptor. And in here we have the client server. Yes, okay, good. I'm just split this one. And I need to go to the same place. See the not the temp. Uh, what's the other one? Get gRPC in examples. This one is interceptor. Okay, let's go in there. This one, this side I'm gonna put on the server, this side's the client. So let's go to this server. Uh, should compile. Should compile and run. It's running now. Okay, cool. And if I go to this one, I need to go to the client. cd client ls cool .NET run. Well, you're gonna see a lot of a lot of information like streaming and bidirectional flows, right? So there are lots going on here. Right? If you look the sort of communications you can see, you have the unary, the simplest requests, server streaming, client streaming, duplex streaming. Right? So we have like two ways of bidirectional communication. And this repository has all of those examples available. I'm not gonna dive into those. Those are like details of the different implementations, but you can see like it's pretty good. You can definitely verify how it works and try yourself. Right? If I am to bring this URL available, let me hide that. So yeah, that's the repository. And we have like different scenarios. I forgot the name of the James. I think he's a principal developer, but his team created lots of examples. One like that's really cool, but I don't have the demo today. Is there's a load balancer. I don't know if I'm gonna find it quickly here, but
You talk
uh,
about the client side load balancing.
yeah, it's really cool. That's a
It
feature.
is very cool.
Yeah, maybe like a session for a demo for another session, but it's really cool, and you can do it like with uh, microservice right in Kubernetes. That works like really well. It's one of the features I'd say on gRPC client load balancing. That's one of that's the example. And just go back, like let me see like if you have any questions. I think like
I have
we
one.
have
Yeah, I just put a link there, Marcel. If you wanna open this one as well, there's a blog explaining the new features of gRPC 6.
awesome.
There's so
Let's put
many
link in
things.
here. There are
I give you the
lots.
private link there. Yeah,
Yep.
James. Many people know James because he was the one that wrote the JSON library for .NET that now became part of .NET.
Yeah. Yeah. Good resource. I'm gonna put like this one on the chat as well. Let me go in here. That's being recorded. Let's put in there. Okay, so like
That-
Minju, we have a comment from
yeah.
Minju saying that
Mm.
it says like 7 times faster than the REST API. Yeah, yeah, that's like I think we got like the resource, the same resource that was exploring. That's exactly it. Yeah, let's bring the URL that we got like from George. That's this one that I'm sharing, so you can have a look at that. And this is the client-side load balancing that I was mentioning. That's really cool. Really worth having a look at that.
Yeah, that one is quite nice. Like I remember, I'm not saying how many years ago, but it's more than one decade. Like almost 20 years ago, I did something similar that was completely client-side load balancing. And tell you what, that fixed a lot of problems, and
Hmm.
you can just broadcast the servers,
Yeah,
and the client, the client, they have like a list of servers, and now because they have all that retries
yeah,
out of the box, means that if they call a server, the server is out, they're going to call the next one, and it's all embedded on the library. Then you don't have to care. You just call that server.
yeah.
And I think
Correct.
DEPA is using that. DEPA is the library for .NET now, and for the language, we have like a separate process to manage that communication. I'm
Hmm.
guessing they're using the same approach.
I think so. Yeah. Well, it seems right, or it would be logical perhaps to use that. But yeah, that's an underlying implementation. Yeah, I'm very keen to explore Dapper, but not necessarily with Azure Container Apps, but directly, just check like from the .NET side and seeing how it works because it leverages gRPC. And one of the things is that like just as a continuation, there would be the examples where to use. Like you're just talking like about the Dapper, and that connects like where to use like the gRPC. So it's being mainly used by the community by on with microservices, but there are other like ways of how you can leverage the the technology, right? So if I go, well, so we have this bidirectional communication, point to point, real time communication. Also, where like you have solutions that you need to make take advantage of that, this bidirectional communication, you have like a really good technology to leverage, right? And that's without polling because it's just available on this bidirectional streaming. Right? I think like with HTTP 1.1, you have like issues with the number of requests you can have, but with HTTP 2, you don't have those limitations, right? So it makes very suitable for point-to-point real-time communication. Another thing, right? We have like this multi-language. When you have these multi-language environments, the gRPC tooling enables you to leverage proto files and creating them like clients specific to the technology you're aiming, right? Or with the language that you're aiming. So that allows you to use like that with gRPC. In network constrained environments, you have, well, because we have protobuf that's very lightweight message format, you have like a very good use case like for gRPC, right? When you have that sort of network constraint scenarios environment. One of the things that I wasn't aware, but let's say if we're talking like about, well, gRPC, you have this communication client server, right, through the network. But if you have the communication with these applications, well, there is like this inter-process communication, which is more like a Unix domain socket. Right? So that's, I think it's very specific for Unix, but you can communicate with different apps in the same machine. So that's another scenario for gRPC. And perhaps people are not aware, right? Because in general, if you don't study the what the technology provides you, like you just tend to check only what's the boilerplate, right, for the different technologies, but not necessarily exploring what else you can do. And that's a good case really for gRPC. Well, with that, I think like we kind of getting to our conclusion, like of this uh, user group. I think like it's really good because what we have explored here is going to be recorded, so people can just come and see when they are keen or just for references. But it was, yeah, it was very nice to have you, George. And I hope like we have more sessions like that in future.
Thanks, Marcel. Thanks for inviting me. I really enjoyed the JRPC, and I promise I'm going to put something on my talk this week as well about JRPC because that's probably one of the nice, you know, feature from .NET 6, in my opinion. And when I see things like retries, client load balancing, client load balancing, there are
Yeah,
so many things that you can do with that. And maybe, the young generation, they don't know how. And see if I can
correct.
put together an example. And maybe if I do it, maybe I come back here next time and present that.
Yeah, no, that would be really cool. Yeah, anytime, really. In general, like I invite guests, but if you feel that they have like really great content or like content that you you found yourself like that is going to be valuable like to developers, yeah, just please just ping me, and we can just arrange like sessions. Yeah, I'm just
Ah,
sharing
nice.
here this article that kind of summarizes everything that I showed on this session. So you also can, for the links I shared during the session, you can find like all of them in here as well.
No,
I
that's
think with
nice.
yeah, I think with that, I would say just like good night for the developers like me in general, like a continue coding, and I know like others user group like do that as well. Eh, yeah, so just like good coding, and we catch you up later in the next session. Bye, see you later.
Yeah, see everyone.